Okay, welcome. Welcome to the US Games Buzz. I'm Alison DeNicola, and it's my pleasure to be here. This is our first recorded interview. It's my honor to have Francesca Romana Valente.
Thank you,
Here.
Alison. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you.
And so I'm just going to say a little bit about myself. I am a author and at a US Games author. I am also the National Sales and Marketing Manager at US Games. And it's our intention to bring light to our amazing authors and artists so that we can share a little bit of insight into their projects, into their writings, into their creations, their artwork, um, their card decks out in the world. So that is our intention, and we're going to have a great series of interviews starting with this one. Welcome, Francesca. And I'm going to read a little bit about Francesca, and then I'll show you her latest U.S. Games endeavor. So Francesca Romana Valente is from Rome, and she is an archaeologist and professional tour guide in Rome. Amazing. I'm ready to come. Since childhood, she has had two passionate interests, archaeology and the esoteric. She's been practicing divination since the age of 10. And while at the university, she studied archaeology, receiving her MD in Christian and late ancient archaeology. She also worked at the University of Rome as a researcher, participating in various conferences and graduate lectures on Christian archaeology. Now she works as a Zen teacher. She is the author of The Oracle of the Trees, published by US Games, as well as two other Oracle decks, deck and book sets published in Italy. So I'm going to just start by showing your Oracle of the Trees, which is your latest and your first US Games product. And we'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about that. But let's start by talking about Rome. That's so exciting. Like, tell us about life in Rome and what's happening, what happens in Rome outside of COVID and all of that. So give us a little update. Yeah.
Well, here we've been reopening lately a little bit of everything, see how things are going. Apparently, with the vaccines, it's getting better. So we're really hoping that we'll be ready also to have visitors again, because, Rome without visitors is so weird. Because here we're always so full of people coming from everywhere. So it feels different now, but at least it's good that now we have finally spring, and it's also kind of warmer than usual. So everybody's out in the parks, everybody's going to the sea already. So it feels like summer already. So it's kind of nice.
Awesome. I love that. I haven't been to Rome in over 10 years, but I could just picture. I can't imagine what Rome is like without tourists, though.
Yeah, feels so different.
Yeah, and so tell me about that you are an archaeologist and also a tour guide in Rome, which makes sense. So have you been able to do that, or what is that like?
So I graduated in archaeology a while ago, and then I've been a researcher for the university as well. And I specialized in early Christian archaeology. So it's basically the first centuries of the Christianity. And in particular, I focused in iconography, which is basically the study of the symbols. So recognize what's the meaning behind the early paintings or the sculptures, the catacombs. So it's really fascinating because I used to spend like more time underground in the catacombs than above the ground. So it was really awesome. And then I started guiding tours in 2012. So and I used to do it mostly for American companies, actually. It was really beautiful because it was really I felt always honored to be able to welcome visitors and share my passion for the archaeology. So it was really nice for me. And then I started, because of the COVID basically emergency, I had to completely change my job. So now I work in school. I'm a teacher now. So, and I enjoy that too, because I like being with the kids. So I'm happy with my new job, but I hope that I'll be able to guide tours again.
Awesome. Well, it's almost like teaching, right? Being a
See,
tour
it's
guide.
pretty much the
It's
same
like,
thing. It's the difference that usually during the tours, people are happy to listen to me, and I don't have to tell them to be quiet most of the time. So that's the main difference.
oh,
But
that's funny. That's so true. You don't have to reprimand the
no,
the people on your tours, but the
no,
children.
I
Yeah.
don't have to grade papers too.
What was the most popular tour that you gave in Rome? Like what was the
Oh, well, number one for sure, the Colosseum and the
okay,
Vatican. Those were the two highlights for sure.
right. Awesome. So, and the Vatican, of course, is just filled with art and history, and I mean, all of Rome has just history everywhere. But um, I want to find out more about how you made the leap from archaeology into becoming an author, and and I imagine because you live in Rome and there's so much symbolism and so much history. I mean, it's one of those places where you could be sitting having a coffee and there's a piece of a column or some, I mean, it's an amazing place where there's like living history there, uh, uh, out, right there where you are. So how did you make the transition from, archaeology or studying symbolism into writing about it?
Well, in reality, I put a lot of what I studied in what I write, because I use a lot the symbolism from ancient cultures. And for instance, my previous books, the ones that are published here in Italy, they're basically based on my two theses in archaeology.
Okay.
One is based on a thesis that I did for my master's degree, which was about the Book of Revelations. So the iconography that is taken from the Book of Revelations. So here in Rome, in pretty much every church, every catacomb, there is something that has something to do with the Book of Revelations by Saint John. And so basically, I translated that into my oracle. So I did a lot of research. And basically, all the cards are inspired from the symbolism from the Book of the Revelations. And my other oracle, always the Italian one, is based on another thesis that I did that is about the doors. So the symbolism of the door in the
Oh.
ancient world, because the door
Oh.
is a threshold. And so from ancient Egypt, the Greeks, the Romans. So basically, every culture in the world has something to say about the doors.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. You often see those compilation pictures of like, maybe like 50 doors and think like, which one would I choose? Which one would I open? Which one am I attracted to? And there's probably some subconscious, part of us that has a connection to that through lifetimes or,
Yeah, exactly, because it's a symbol that it's universal. So every culture in the world, even the Christians at the Vatican, there's the holy door. There's a lot of importance also in the churches in Rome about the door, the symbolism of like crossing the threshold and entering a sacred space. So, and that's funny because it's universal. So for the Greeks, it was the same. For the Romans, for everybody. So everybody has a symbolism about the doors. There are like gods or goddesses like Janus, which is basically the Roman god of the doors. So,
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. I love that.
and I did the same also for my Oracle of the Trees. It took me nearly 2 years to write the book because I had to do a lot of research about the trees. And also, the tree is a symbol that is universal, also because trees are everywhere. So, every culture has like a god or a particular tree that is the center of a cult. So, and this is really everywhere. In fact, what I really like about writing these books is trying to make them universal. So that there is a little bit of like Greek culture, Roman, Christian, or Egyptian, everything.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I did get a chance to read a lot of the book this weekend. So I wanted to share I want to just share with the audience. First of all, I love the cover. I love the cover art. You can tell me about the artist in a minute.
Sure.
But I was instantly, when I saw this was coming, I was like, I'm a nature lover, and I have a nature deck, which is the Divine Feather Messenger, and so it's all about the birds. And so I was like, I love the trees. I love the symbolism of the trees, and I love any kind of nature symbols that have, like kind of a breadth of you know, going across different traditions and different time periods and also across the continent because there's different trees on different continents, right? That we have in North America or in Europe, and I'm sure in the Far East. So there, the bonsai or different kinds of trees that really represent different things. But what I have to say about the card deck that I was so like super impressed and into was the book, because the book and the art is beautiful, but the book is chock full of information. I was like, wow, she really knows her stuff. Like there's so much information in the booklet, which I love. Um, and so it was really great because it's like you covered every different aspect. There's like a message, there's the background of the tree, then there's like the symbolism of that particular time period or how different cultures view it. And then you have a lot of nice little add-ins here, different kinds of spreads to do with it, or the Celtic astrology, which I found fascinating. So I was actually telling everybody this weekend what their tree was. Everybody I would be like, when's your birthday? Your tree is the, and so people really appreciate that information. We collect things like horoscopes, and we make associations through different, different things. And in I don't know if you're familiar or have read anything about Native American astrology, but the medicine wheel has that similar path than the Celtic, where they have the different astrology and the different nature symbol that's associated with it. So, how, tell us how you got started. I mean, I know that so you did the doors, you did your first thing, but how did this really get started? What was the impetus to create the Oracle of the Trees?
This is a fun story actually, because I had just basically published my second book, the Italian one, and then I was looking for a new theme, always something universal. So I was kind of there with my little notebook writing ideas, and then I just looked outside the window. I live in an apartment, but my neighbor has a beautiful garden outside with trees. So I was like, there it is. That's the answer. I mean, and so the coincidence is that the illustrator, Mariuccia D'Angio, the artist, she called me just a few minutes later and she had the same idea. So that's really crazy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so that's really a sign.
You knew you were on the right track, right? She called
Yeah.
you and it was like, oh, we had the same idea at the same time. We need to do it. So, did you come up with a list of trees? Were you the one who
Yes.
came up with the idea, and then she did the art? I'm going to show a little bit of the cards here. The cards are beautiful. Let's see. I keep picking this card.
The Kapok tree.
It's number 21, the Kapok tree. And so I've done a few card pulls, and I keep pulling that one. I'm going to say it's a pretty auspicious card. So
yeah,
I was thrilled. I keep pulling the same one. I love it. But the cards are quite beautiful, and I love that she wove in all the different nature elements. So there's like some like Eastern for the peach tree, some Eastern imagery, the wishing tree, the different the mistletoe, the elm tree. So how did you come to decide like what you were going to put in here, and what you were going to write about?
Basically, what I did a lot of research. So also the iconography that you see is completely based on ancient documents, pictures, sometimes even manuscripts. So they're really based on things that I researched. So it's not made up, let's say. So what I did was basically try to investigate what was the meaning that the ancient used to give to these trees. So that basically I just adapted it to the modern life. So basically with the modern issues of our contemporary time. So I did a lot of research to try to, because I think that the power of the symbols comes from the fact that they've been used so much, that they've been charged with meanings. So I don't want to ruin or change that original meaning. I just want to add a little bit more to it, or just try to make it more understandable for us. So I just want to be a sort of vessel for that ancient meaning. So what I did was to do a lot of research to ensure that the iconography was the same. So I gave Mariuccia, the artist, a lot of pictures and references and descriptions so that she could use all of that and put it into her art. And then for the meanings, I did the same. I did a lot of research and then adapt the original meaning to our contemporary life.
I love it. Well, you did a beautiful job. And what I'm curious about, in addition to this card deck, is that you said you've been reading, that you had passion for divination, and that you've been doing that since you were 10 years old. So, so this definitely was in your blood, like in the blood, like you had, you obviously you are very, knowledgeable and educated, and you have a handle on, the symbolism and all that, but there's the magic piece, right? The divination piece that you put into it too. So how do you feel, what did you used to do? Who were you reading for is really what I want to ask you. When you were 10 years old, who were you reading for? And if you have been reading with the cards, or how you want to suggest people do that.
So basically, when I was 10, I started with playing cards, the poker cards, basically. I started with that because that was the only deck that I had available at home. Because I have to say, my parents are not particularly into divination.
That's cute. So were you giving readings or reading fortunes or doing
for
that?
a friend? For a friend who was actually a daughter of my father's colleague, and we were basically reading for each other. And then since my father saw that I was so passionate about it, that I kept talking about it and going on about it, he decided to buy me my first deck, my first tarot deck.
And what was your first tarot deck?
My first tarot deck was the Oswald Wirth.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, amazing.
Very big book with it was only the major arcana though. And then later, when I was 17, I bought my own deck, my full deck, which I still have. So, which is a rather white deck, traditional one.
Awesome. So you were already in the U.S. Games family at that point.
Yes.
You were already doing it. You didn't know you were doing it, but you were. Yeah, that's awesome. So just give us a little brief idea how you would suggest using these cards for people that are already doing divination, and or people that maybe just are curious and they want to learn more about the trees, and they actually want to get a little bit of input or information for themselves. How would you suggest people get started?
Well, I would get started probably with one simple one card pull. So that is the easiest thing, so that you can just start to get to know your deck. Because I think the most important thing is that you develop a relationship with your deck, because after a while, then you'll realize that kind of develop your own language. So you know what cards specifically mean to you, beside, the general meaning. So you know what card refers to a particular person if you're doing a certain kind of spread. But I would start from one card. Just one card, maybe one card a day. And a good thing would be also a good suggestion that I personally find useful when I buy a new deck, which I do a lot. I have a pretty big collection myself. I tend to do this, to to get to know my deck. Basically, every day I pull a card, and then I reflect on that also at the end of the day, so that I can really see what that card was trying to tell me at the beginning of the day. And then I try to take notes, keep a diary as well, with the meanings of the cards, and also with how that meaning particularly applied to my day, to myself, or the person I was reading for.
I love it. I think single card pulls are, even if you can do full reading, I feel like just pulling one card from a specific deck or specific, kind of flavor of information can be really, could be more potent than to do a lot of different, seek a lot of different input, because it really does make you take a little bit more inner reflection and to pay attention to things, pay attention to signs, notice how, things kind of unfold in that way. So it's a great way to get started. I also was thinking that, people that do readings, it's always nice to have a nature matchup. So it might be fun to pull like a tree and an animal card and create a story. So you might have to do like iconic animals next.
Yeah.
in your next creative venture. The other thing I wanted to ask you is if you, I know I mentioned that in the book there's a list of Celtic astrology, so it's based on dates, like astrological dates, that there's tree connections. So, but I was going to ask you if you were going to choose a tree, or you were a tree, which tree do you feel like you resonate with after you've written this whole compilation of information on trees? Which tree is your tree?
Well, let's say that according to the Celtic astrology, or basically according to the few things we know about Celtic astrology, I would be hazel as a tree.
Okay.
That would be, let's say, my tree sign, because for them it's really it's interesting how they, instead of having like signs of the zodiac like we do, they had signs of the trees. So depending on when you were born, you would be born under the protection of a certain tree. But I really I've always been attracted to the ash tree. I don't know if it's just because it's beautiful, because there's a connection, but also I think the story behind it, the symbolism, because it was kind of the ash tree is the tree of the world for the Vikings, for the German ancient people as well. So I think I have the card here. It's one of my favorite cards. It's really, because I'm also in love with the mythology. I've always been with all the mythologies. Yeah. So not just the Roman, which I'm of course familiar with, but also with there it is. This one.
All right. Oh, wow.
There's so much detail that the artist was able to put in this. I was really specific, because the ash tree for the ancient Vikings and for the ancient German people, it was a sort of cosmic tree that was able to support all the 9 worlds of the creation. So the elf world, or the world of the god, and so on, the dwarves, and it was all around the trunk and the branches of the tree. And so I always found fascinating that it was a tree that was the axis of the universe for these people.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And I've never, I realize now that we're having this conversation, how little I know, other than being able to identify certain trees, what the mythological and spiritual aspects of trees are. And they're really throughout, really hundreds and hundreds of years of, and like you said, some things that aren't even written, they're just passed down, legends about the trees or different associations.
There's so much about it, because a lot of also Greek gods and goddesses, they have their own tree. Like Athena, she has the olive tree, or Zeus, he had the oak tree. And the same thing also for the Romans. If you think about it, the history of Rome begins under a tree, the fig tree. because
yeah.
Romulus and Remus, when they were abandoned in the basket, and then the basket was placed in the river, and then they traveled a lot, and they apparently the basket stopped at the foot of the Palatine Hill. It stopped underneath a fig tree.
Oh wow, that's
So,
a great. That's a
and
great.
the fig tree is the sacred tree of Rome. There was one in the Roman Forum.
That's awesome. I mean, there's so much to explore here. This is another of my favorites, the Bodhi tree. And I think because I just, I love the Buddha, and I love the peaceful connotation of that. I didn't read the full. I haven't gotten to, I'm working my way through, and I'm going to do what you suggested. Pick a card a day. I did pick a card for the group though. I picked a card before we started, and this was the card I picked, the Maypole. So do you want to give us a little information on that?
Sure. Well, the Mayfall is a tradition that is still celebrated in some parts of Europe, also in Italy, in some the regions of the center of Italy, particularly. So it's this tree that it's not really a tree; it's more like a pole made with a branch of a tree that used to be covered with some greasy material, and then people had to climb on it, and it was very difficult. But then at the top of it, they were able to get gifts or mostly prizes that consisted in food or like ham, meat, or bread, desserts, or things that other things like that. Mostly in Italy, it's about food, but anyway,
and rightfully so.
So basically, the idea is that you get your reward, but you have really to work hard for it, because climbing that pole would be already hard if it was just a pole, but with all the greasy material, it's kind of very difficult. So it's the reward that comes at the end of a long path, and it's a reward that sometimes it's even bigger than what you expected in the beginning. So there's a lot of climbing, but then at the end you get your reward.
I almost feel like this card is for you. Like you put a lot of work and energy and effort into creating the card deck, and maybe, now the reward is, of course, going to come, because this deck is awesome. And I look forward to doing more readings, more reading in it, and doing readings with it, exploring it more, and learning. Learning some different symbolic and nature elements that I wasn't quite aware of. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. And so I'm just gonna give it a little plug again here. Oracle of the Trees. This is the book. It is 32 cards and 156 page book, so chock full of information. The art is beautiful. The lovely Francesca Valente and her artist partner, how do you say it? Maruccia D'Angio. Okay.
Yes, we've been working together for a while, and I have to say we work very well together. We understand each other. We get each other. So it's really a very nice collaboration. I'm lucky to have her. She's actually the mother of a very good friend. So.
Oh, awesome. That's so beautiful. So I love that. Well, I thank you so much for taking some time today to talk to us about what inspired you, and to really excite me about learning more about the trees and the symbols and all of that. I will be diving deep into this. And for those here in the US, this is available now at your local stores and at usgamesinc.com. You can go to the website and place your order. And in lots of other places, I will double check. It is being shipped overseas, so I'm not quite sure what the status for you, Francesca, is, and how long it takes to get card decks to Italy. But hopefully, you'll be able to see it somewhere in your local. Are there local shops in Rome that carry
Yes.
Yeah.
There are local shops that specialize in tarot, oracles, and so on. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
And I've seen that in Europe. I think it will be released on June the 1st.
Okay, so thank you for confirming that. So June the 1st in Europe, and definitely happening right now in the United States. And thank you so much for taking time to share with us. It's a pleasure to meet you, and
Thank you.
yeah, look forward to seeing you, talking to you again soon.
Of course. Thank you very much. Thank you.